Hi, I'm Rex Sikes with Rex Sikes Movie Beat, and I'm here with sound designer Patrick Giraudi.
Hi Rex, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well.
Awesome. So we're in your studio. You're working on a feature film, and you're designing the sound. What does a sound designer do?
A sound designer is like a chef in the kitchen. We grab all the sounds, dialogue, music, effects, Foley, backgrounds, we all mix them together. But before we do all this, we create sounds that don't exist. We enhance sound that are too small. So it's designing this soundscape of frequencies that have to be married together at the end to create a final soundtrack.
Now, you're working on a movie right now. What movie is that?
This movie is called Dark Prince right now. It may be changed to Dracula versus Van Helsing, and it's an epic, which is a challenge.
And who do we see up there on the screen?
And this movie stars John Voight. He's playing Van Helsing.
So what does a sound designer use to make this magic happen?
We're using all kind of tools, but it always starts with sound. Organic sounds usually, sounds we record every day, sounds we hear every day, and we take the sounds and we load them into a computer using software like Pro Tools or some others, and we manipulate the sounds and we combine those sounds. So it's a sound design is not just one sound. It could be a layer of 2 or 3 sounds, maybe more. But the idea is to mix these sounds together so it sounds right, that it belongs to the picture. A sound design is like a visual effect. If the visual effects appears to belong to the picture, it's a good visual effects. It doesn't stick out. That's what a sound design is. It has to belong to the picture.
Excellent. And we're going to look at your tools in just a moment, but I assume that the movie sound begins with recording on set.
Absolutely. The production sound is extremely important to record clean, or as clean as possible of production, which includes obviously the dialogue, some PFX, production effects. If a recordist is really good at it, he can go around like an epic like this one. It's good to have the recordist record extra sounds like ambiances of the castles, horses, swords, extra movements, running, walking, all this gear that they have, because it's real. The swords are real. So it's good to have someone record all this. And the good thing is we can take all these tracks, even if it's a mono track. We can if they do more than one take, we layer 2 or 3 takes of original sounds. And then we add the Foley on top of that. And we have a lot of sound effects in the library that we can add on top of that. So we end up with a lot of tracks layered, and we pan them also left, center, right, if not surround. So now we can create a group of 1,000 warriors running out of single mono tracks.
So, for example, if I'm going to a door, and I'm going to walk down a hallway, and I'm going to do the footsteps, and I get to the door, I put the key in the door, I turn the knob, the door goes, and it opens up. You want to also record that on the set for the real sound?
If they have a good sounding door that sounds like that, I would say yes. If the keys are plastic, which happens, then we take it out completely and we redo it in the studio with Foley sound effects.
Should the filmmaker know this in advance, or they just go ahead and say, let's get this wild sound while we're here?
More likely they don't pay attention to that. But I wish some people are into sounds and they do record on the set. So directors who know the post-production more than just film editing, if they are into the sound, they're going to hear something and say, I want to record this and use it. And it has happened before.
So the wise director will try to capture as much potential live sound on the set, and then if need be, they add or boost the sound in post, or?
That's right. We always boost the sound to make it bigger than life. That's something we do all the time. But a director who is aware of sound will definitely want to capture a good sounding door. It happens with Walter Salles We did motorcycle diaries. He wanted to be very organic, so whatever was recorded on the set, and they recorded extras. My friend Frank Gaeta went back after the shoot to Chile and found the motorcycles they used in the movie and re-recorded them. So on the same kind of roads they used in the movie. So, and that's why the movie sounds so good. My friend John Putch does a lot of extra recording on his own. After the film his day's over, he goes in with a little M-Audio portable device and records doors and drawers and even him walking in the house.
Excellent, excellent. Great for filmmakers to know. The sound designer layers sound. I mean, you have a track that is live on the set. What are the different tracks? What would you call this first recording? That there's dialogue and different things. What?
We have many tracks, many layers. The first thing are obviously the dialogue, which is the recorded production, and we separate those usually per character, and also we listen to the sound quality of each track. If they are clean, we put them on certain tracks, and if they need attention, like equalization, we put them on other tracks. So the editor does that.
So the soundtracks for the characters, is that what the dialogue editor does?
The dialogue editor takes the production that is conform from probably an OMF or autoconform, which is loading the original data into the Pro Tools from the camera now, and then we go through and we check every single track that is given to us, because they record multi-track now. They have laughs, they have booms, so we have to go through every single track and figure out, okay, this is used, this is not needed, and then do fades, remove all the pops and clicks and unwanted sounds that are in there, because it's not always clean. And then these are for one set of tracks, and then the tracks that need equalization, if you hear a hum or a generator or some other artifacts, we put them on to be worked on track, and that will be my job to go through and clean those up. And then we have a third set of tracks called the PFX, the production effects. And these tracks are whatever is usable from the production, like horses in this case, or swords, heavy doors, footsteps, you name it. If it's usable, I want to use it and put it on separate tracks, because these tracks will end up in the M&E, which stands for music and effects. And that's the tracks that the foreign countries buy, and they're going to redub the movie in their own language. So more production, more good production we keep, the better.
So each character gets their own track, correct?
More or less.
More or less.
Or group of actors, because sometimes you cannot separate them too much.
Okay. So you have the tracks for the characters, you've got the tracks for the music, you've got the tracks for the production effects, and whatever else. You also have a blank track, which is a dub track.
A dub track as the guide track?
For the foreign.
Oh, for the foreign. For the foreign, well, it's complicated because first we need to do the entire mix. Once we have that done, we mute the dialogue, English dialogue, and we end up with a more naked track. Now we need to make sure it's all filled. Footsteps are there, doors are there, movements are there. If it's not there, well, it's probably in the Foley, so we boost the Foley and increase the level of all the footsteps and all. Now if it's not there at all, if it was either omitted or not needed at a time, we go back into the Foley stage and we do Foley pickups. And we just add what's missing. So when you listen to the M&E track, it will sound like the movie without the English dialogue. And what's happening is the foreign countries who buy the movie, they're going to dub it into French, German, Japanese, whatever language that they need to dub it onto.
And you mentioned Foley. What exactly is Foley? And we can take a look at it later, but what is Foley? Describe it.
Foley stands for, it's actually the name of the guy who invented Foley. They realized back in the days when sound in movies had to be redone because they were shooting westerns, they were shooting period pieces, like in Italy a lot. They would redub the sound in the studio because of all the traffic. Same in Hollywood. They would have their studios in the middle of Hollywood, and you would hear a car honking in the middle of a western. That would not fly. So they had to replace the dialogue. It's called looping. And basically looping is part of ADR, which is they take a section of the film and they loop it, and they have the actor come back and redo that particular line of dialogue or scene sometimes. And when you do that, well, you end up removing all the production sound that is in the production, which are movements, footsteps, breathing, presence, all these sounds, ambience. So what we have to do is recreate all what was removed. That includes the ambience, and that includes the movement. The movements are part of Foley, and Foley is a very difficult job to do because you have to recreate what you see on the screen and even more. So when people are walking, we need to look at what kind of shoes they have. You have a man and a woman, so it's different kind of shoes, different kind of clothing, weapons, like in this case, they have swords and some other artifacts they are carrying. So we have to watch a scene of a movie, and then literally duplicate what's on the screen and duplicate it so it looks right and it sounds right, so it belongs to the picture again.
And are they duplicating it in real time?
It is all real time. That's why Foley takes a lot of time.
Thus the art. And the difference between professionally done, even if it's a micro-budget movie, and a non-professional movie would be probably most noticeable the difference between great sound and not so great sound.
Yeah, this is where, time and budget have a big influence on how much time is spent in the sound. Sound is about 50% of a movie, depending on what kind of movie it is. If it's an action movie, it's more than 50%. If it's a walk and talk, it's not as important, although clean dialogue is very important. Budget dictate how much time is being spent in the sound, and the Foley being a big part of it.
I think for me, some of the things that I find issue with is that some movies sound tiny or tinny, or I'm not sure I have the right word, but there are movies that sound very full. It's not just that they're louder, but they're fuller. There's a presence to them where others just sound kind of hollow and distant, and maybe the difference between on-camera recorded sound, like if I take a tiny camera and record somebody talking versus if I have them mic'd.
Having a boom or lav has a definite difference in the production sound itself. The lav being a microphone that is on the body, and that lav is designed to capture the vibration of the body. So you'll have a nice low end to it, especially people who have a deep voice. They'll sound even deeper. The boom is the microphone that is suspended on top of the actors, which captures a wonderful sound, that they are designed for that. But it's different. You get a little more air. You get it's not as present because the other one is right there on the chest. So everywhere you move, if you walk away from the microphone, you still have that presence. The boom, you'll hear the distance happening and back. So these are the two differences. For Foley, since we're talking about Foley, we have to also duplicate that. You can listen to production and see what is used in there, if it's lavs or boom, and if we need to create a distance or not. And also, the sound quality you mentioned is connected to a lot of things. The microphone that is used for Foley, the recordist that is recording the Foley, the artist who is doing the Foley, and also the props that are being used. If you're using the wrong shoes, it's not going to sound right. If you have a leather jacket in a movie, Well, you want to use a leather jacket. You cannot use something else. So everything has to be heavier and bigger than even what's on the screen. And that's why you get a thicker soundtrack. And of course, layering all this is extremely important.
So before we get into the nuts and bolts of what you do and take a look at some of the different tracks and layers in your board and things like that, for the grassroots filmmaker who's out there, they've got software, they've got editing software, they've gone and shot their movie, now they've got a mixing software. Any tips or suggestions that they, because some people try and do this all themselves. Any tips or suggestions for these filmmakers in terms of making their sound better?
Yes, don't just plug the mic in the camera. Use a person who knows his equipment. Knowing your equipment is the key of capturing a good sound. It's like you don't want to hire a first-time DP to get your film colored and filmed, and you want someone who has an eye and an experience. Well, it's the same for sound. You don't want just to use a Radio Shack microphone or the onboard microphone of the camera, because it's not designed for capturing a good sound. So hiring the right person who has the right equipment and knows it is my advice to filmmakers.
Excellent.
I'm just going to play dialogue only.
The Lightbringer should not be passed around like a flagon of cheap ale.
Leonardo!
Clear enough?
Told you you'd come for the Lightbringer.
What is happening here? What are you two doing with such companions as these? What is this flirtation? Open your eyes, look! Is this the people to share your sacred secrets with?
She was the one that told you I was protecting it.
I am disappointed with both of you. What would your father have said now? And he entrusted me with your care.
Do you have a track that's
Excuse me.
just like the sound effects without the dialogue?
Yeah.
So,
I'll play, right now I'm going to play sound effects in Foley.
okay, here. So say that now.
So, this is just dialogue only, which is combined also with the ADR. This is what we're going to hear now. Okay, that was for the previous pass. Okay, great. Now I'm going to play sound effects, Foley, and ambience only together because they complete each other. And it's basically, there's not a lot of effects here, just fires. The Foley, there's a lot of Foley, and the ambience is exterior forest at night. Here it is.
Patrick, we've looked at a track that was dialogue only. Then we had Foley, production effects, and
You had, the first part I soloed was just production dialogue and ADR. It's all pre-mixed. And then the second part was Foley, effects, production effects, and ambience, which I separate as much as possible. Obviously, these by themselves sound boring without dialogue, but they are so important to support the dialogue. And that's what creates a scene, and it makes you feel like you're there, outside, surrounded by a forest, some wind, little insects. There's a campfire, and then you have the Foley of the people walking in the scene, moving around, and that's what creates the soundtrack. And to top it all, we have the music, which is underscore, and I'm going to play a little bit of it.
so you've got these different tracks, and then Patrick?
And then we put it all together. And that's what we'll hear now, which composes the final soundtrack of Dark Prince, aka Dracula versus Van Helsing. And this scene is when we meet Van Helsing for the first time.
All right.
Here it is. Here it is.
The Lightbringer should not be passed around like a flagon of cheap ale.
Leonardo!
Told you to come for the light bringer.
What is happening here? What are you two doing with such companions as these? What is this flirtation? Open your eyes! Look! Is this the people to share your sacred secrets with?
She was the one that told you I was protecting it.
I am disappointed with both of you. What would your father have said now? The Lightbringer should not be passed around like a flagon of cheap ale.
Leonardo!
Told you to come for the light bringer.
What is happening here? What are you two doing with such companions as these? What is this flirtation? Open your eyes! Look! Is this the people to share your sacred secrets with?
She was the one that told you I was protecting it.
I am disappointed with both of you. What would your father have said now? And he trusted me with your care.
Excuse me.
Who are you, old man? I am Leonardo van Helsing. And who are you?
I'm Lucien Murray.
A great adventurer.
World's finest poet.
Lover.
Thief.
Very amusing.
Very.
My friend, you have something that belongs to me.
Do I?
What's going on, The Scourge. What did you do on that?
So we have all these tracks. Now what happens?
And now we put it all together and move.
Okay, Patrick, what is this on the monitor? What are we looking at?
This very busy part of the monitor is the sound effects for the fight that is coming up. This movie is totaling... We're a little more than 100 tracks for the movie. Actually, we have more than that. But this is about 100 tracks of sound effects, ambience, Foley, loop group. Here's the Foley down here. It's also very busy, as you can see. We have a lot of soldiers, a lot of people fighting, swords, hits, whooshes. So the fight is about it's more than 100 tracks, and it has whooshes, swords, clinks, body fall, chains, reactions. We have the ambience that keeps going. We have loop group, which are a lot of reactions, and some of the sound design for the undead. The creatures that are in this movie are called the undead, so we had to create some sounds for them. Then we have all the Foley, footsteps, armor, any kind of metal that these people have, so it's very thick.
So cool. Let's go take a look at the Foley.
I'm going to play, this is a very important part of the film. I can play for you the individual tracks. Right now, I'm going to play you just the sound effects.
Okay.
Here we go. Here we go. Hold on. Need to put that in input. Okay, and this was just sound effects, now just the Foley. So during this fight, the Foley covers all the movements, the footsteps. There's some chain I heard, and that's added on top of the sound effects, which are just a hard effect. So anything, swords, punches, body fall, things that the Foley doesn't always do, and we have great sound libraries of those anyway. So when you combine both, you have a really nice, busy, thick soundtrack of a fight. And obviously, you put a very epic music on top of that, and that sounds like a big fight.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's go take a look at the Foley.
Foley stage, yes. Let me take you there. This way. Boots? What?
I can't see. Right there.
This is Bootsy. She's the mascot. No one's here. Okay. This is before the stage. Get a little more light. This is our Foley stage, and this is Foley stage. Always looks messy. It's part of the gig. We have all kind of toys here. This is one of the saddles that was used in the film. Right here. Over here we have some of the leather I was talking about. So the keys to, we grab some leather like this. Then we go back here and grab some other items, which are leather and metal. Grab some belt, which has a nice sounding buckle, and then saddle like this. I'm going to put the jacket on top of it, and then we can do the horse, for example. That would be someone galloping. And we can do someone jump, going on the horse. Then when you put 2 or 3 layers of that, and that creates a heavier sound.
Say that again. When you put 2 or 3 layers.
And by layering 2 or 3 layers of this, that creates a heavier sound, which we always do for movies. But this jacket, if you hear it, has a really nice crackle to it. It's one of my favorite. And then back here, behind the door, one of the swords that was used to do Foley, and we have also the machete somewhere.
Here, I'll hold your sword for you.
Where's the machete? This guy, and we have also the samurai. It's about 3 swords that were used for Foley here. And if you listen, and this is the sword that John Voight was holding to. But if you listen, has a nice ring to it. Now the hits are done with sound effects, but additional sounds are done with those. This is a nice ring, this one. And this is the samurai sword. This is actually a real samurai sword, and it's a thicker metal. It's actually higher pitch. So we watch the movie and we go. I'll send you a picture of John Voight, because he came down. John came down to see how the sound was going, and he was very kind to take pictures with us.
Oh, very cool.
So he made the Foley crew very happy that day.
Awesome. So Patrick and I are looking at his mixing board. You also have a keyboard over there. What is the keyboard?
A keyboard can do many things. I usually use it to trigger a sampler. And that's very useful to do pickups, sound effects pickups, or usually Foley, more likely. I have great banks of Foley. If I need to do some additional footsteps, I can load a bank and walk it on a keyboard. It's very efficient for what I need to do.
Now you're using Pro Tools, but you've got a large mixing board here. A lot of grassroots filmmakers are doing things with software on their computers. They're using their mouse and whatever. They don't have the kind of tools that you have. What all of this do? I mean, you've got faders and...
They are basically, these are controllers. They come in fader packs of 8, except the master one. And they control the software, so there is no sound going through those. It's just controlling the software, because you cannot really mix with the mouse. You know, it's nice to have the feeling of a fader when you mix music, especially, or plus it gives you 24 faders or more. I can have up to 32 here, and they are in banks. So what you see is one layer, but then I can push a button, and then boom, I go to the next layer and the next layer. So depending on how many tracks I have here, that's how many tracks I have there. So it's a small board, but it's actually in layers, so I have up to 192 tracks.
And this movie, you said, has over 100 tracks.
Just for the fights.
Just for the fights?
Yes.
Wow.
So, yeah. And that's why I need to have layers, so I can have a layer of sound effects, and then I switch over the Foley, then I switch over the ambience, and then the ADR, and then the dialogue, if any, and then the music.
Wow. And that's why people rely on professionals like Patrick to do their sound. Patrick Giraudi, you rock, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great pleasure.
And we'll do more.
Yes, please. Come back anytime.
Right. And that's why professional movies hire professionals like Patrick Giraudi to do their sound design. Patrick, this is fascinating. Thanks so much for taking this time. We'll continue our conversation and look at all the different things that you do.
You're always welcome. I'm working on many different kind of projects, and every project is a challenge.
Patrick, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for being here. Any final words before we go away?
Well, it was a pleasure to see you.
And likewise.
And I hope we can do that again. And I'm seriously hoping my advices are being heard by filmmakers, and that when they shoot their movie, they'll think about it, and they will consider it.
Mr. Patrick Giraudi here on Rex Sikes Movie Beat, thank you so very much.
My pleasure. See you soon.
See you soon.